leadership within us. So you get Janine's
Yes.
first here.
Yes, Jackie, thank you. There are 3 positions open tonight for board reorganization. During this process, I will hold the temporary chair of the meeting until the president is elected. The process will be to call for nominations and then declare the nominations closed. Nominations are now open for the president of the Lake Washington School Board.
I'd like to nominate Jackie for another term as president of our board.
Second.
Jackie Pendergrass has been nominated for the president of the school board. Nominations do not need a second, but thank you, Nancy.
Okay.
Are there any other nominations for president of the board?
After a vigorous campaign, I've decided not to run.
Okay, as there are no other nominations for president of the board, I will declare the nominations closed. There has been 1 nomination for president, and that is Jackie Pendergrass. All in favor of Jackie Pendergrass as president signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I won't say nay.
Motion carries. Jackie Pendergrass is elected by unanimous vote of the board to president. Congratulations, Jackie.
Thank you very much.
And you may now take over the chair to elect the vice president.
Okay. All righty. Thank you very much to all of you, and looking forward to a good year ahead of us. Things kind of steady and moving forward. I will now entertain nominations for vice president of the board.
No, wait. I nominate Nancy? Okay. I knew I had mine.
I heard a nomination for Nancy Bernard for vice president, and we don't need a second. So is there any other nominations for the position of vice president? Hearing none, I declare that nominations be closed for vice president, and we have 1 nomination, which is Nancy Bernard. So all of those, please, in favor of Nancy as our vice president, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. So Nancy, you are elected unanimously as our vice president. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Not too many trips.
Not too many. Not too many trips. And now our nominations are open for our legislative representative. And I would entertain a motion to nominate someone for that position.
I'll nominate Doug.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we have nomination for Doug Eglinton as our legislative rep for the board. Any other nominations? Hearing none, then we'll have the nominations for the legislative representative of the board closed. And so we have 1 nominee, and that is Doug Eglinton. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Doug, thank you very much for serving as our legislative representative. Okay. Now we're on to our consent agenda.
Not yet. I'm not there. Can't move forward without me.
Oh,
We all know that. My dear.
oh, aren't those beautiful?
In token of your continual sacrifice to lead this group of what I used to call cats when I had your job,
I love cats, but you know I love cats. They're my favorite critters.
you get to go do some gardening.
Oh, I love it. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, my goodness, how gorgeous is that?
Pretty one.
Oh, it is pretty. Oh, and I love, you know, I absolutely love hellebores. Oh, these are beautiful. Thank you very much.
They keep getting prettier and prettier.
They do. I haven't
is a
had,
new cultivar.
I've not seen this one before. Thank
Now
you
is it
very
rolled
much.
back?
Yes.
Jacob, I'll put it back there.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, my goodness, how
We
great.
do appreciate you.
Yes, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your service,
Oh,
Jackie.
you're more than welcome. But I can't wait to get in the garden. And I heard this weekend that it's a kind of spring-like feeling. But of course,
Hopefully.
we'll be here working hard on Saturday.
Hopefully.
So maybe Sunday.
Okay, now I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
What?
Snowstorm.
It's snowing right now in the mountains.
Oh.
Very important for the rest of my species.
Yeah. Well, it can stop by Friday, can't it?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right. Consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Janine, would you poll the board, please?
Yes, Chris?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Siri?
Yes.
And our donations?
Yes. Okay. On tab 4, we have donations totaling $214,117. We have $1,862 from Audubon PTSA to provide stipend for unicycling and choir. $4,000 from an anonymous donor to Peter Kirk Elementary to support school goals. $3,180 from the Lake Washington High School PTSA to the Lake Washington High School to purchase handheld camcorders and graphic calculators. $1,221 from Albert Einstein PTSA to Einstein Elementary to purchase handwriting without tears and first in math for 5th grade. $4,114 from Redmond High School PTSA to Redmond High to purchase muscle figures, heart model, sectioned brain model, and Biolab pig.
I like that.
And Real Care pregnancy vest and curriculum.
Usually the itemized part doesn't excite me, but that really does, so thank you.
$2,260 from Smith PTSA to provide a stipend for choir. $180,000 from the Paul G. Allen Foundation to the STEM School to support capacity building project.
This is in addition to what they've given before, isn't it? To this, I think, didn't they give a donation before?
I believe so.
To sell? I think so.
There was a donation earlier. They've received a number of donations.
Okay, great.
$4,186 from Rockwell PTSA to purchase cafe tables. $3,088 from Eastlake High School to provide a grant for science, astronomy, physics, and a stipend for National Honor Society. $2,000 from the Finn Hill Junior High PTSA to purchase library books and office supplies. And $8,205 from Laura Ingalls Wilder PTSA to support MSP preparations and a stipend for Math Olympiad, as well as choir and motor skills. So for a total of $214,117 in donations, and we definitely want to thank all of the donors, our PTSA, all of the individuals as well as organizations who've helped to support our schools.
Definitely, for sure. You know, and looking at this, I'm wondering, do all our middle school PTAs now have to change their names to middle schools, and since they're no longer
Organizations.
and they're in, I'm seeing a nod in the back that they're getting that name change in there, working on that. Another thing to do with our changing our configuration is what you call yourself.
At some point in time, what is the capacity building project that the STEM grant is providing? It would be nice to know.
Okay. We can give
Because it's a fairly large.
Yes, that would be
information to you on the specific details of what they're planning to do with that.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Might ask, depending if that might be something that could be even in a superintendent's report, maybe the public would like to hear that as well on that, to know, especially since the Allens Foundation has donated quite a bit of money.
Very generous.
Towards the STEM school. Great. Okay. Any other comments before we move on to non-consent agenda? Okay. And we're on to non-consent agenda. Our first item is about the temporary boundary recommendation at Rosa Parks and Wilder. So Janine, I'll let you go from here.
Thank you, Jackie. As you know, Tracy was unable to be here tonight. However, she did prepare information that she has asked me to share tonight with the board, and I'm going to read her report so you have her background before taking up this item. First, she would like to share that it's important to recap why the temporary boundary adjustment needs to occur. The 2010 bond that would have funded a new elementary school in Redmond Ridge East did not pass. Had that bond passed, we would have opened a new school this year. While the shift to K-5 provided some relief at Rosa Parks, the school has continued to grow, requiring more portables to be on their site over the past few years. This has included 4 portables that were added in the 2009-10 school year, an additional 4 portables in 10-11, and 2 more in 11-12 for a total of 10 portables. In looking at the enrollment for Rosa Parks for the past 3 years, their enrollment has been 666 students in 2010-11, 768 students in 11-12, and 795 in 12-13. While the school has been large for several years, when I, Tracy, became superintendent in July, this issue rose to the top of my priority list as the school grew to 795 students this year, and a group of parents looked to me to address this issue. Knowing that we are planning to consider another bond in 2014 with plans for a new school to open in 2016, I looked at the projected enrollment data to see what the enrollment numbers for Rosa Parks are projected to be between 2013-14, 14-15, and 15-16 over the next 3 years. The projections show that Rosa Parks would grow to over 1,000 students by 2015-16 if no adjustment occurred. Therefore, something needed to be done to address this issue. When I first shared that we would need to determine how to move students from Rosa Parks, I heard from many parents via email and in person at the community meeting that they felt that the school is not currently too large, it is well managed, and they did not want their children to have to leave the school. However, when people saw the fact that the school would grow to over 1,000 students, they understood the need at hand. This, together with the fact that nearby Wilder Elementary was continuing to shrink in size, and it too is a wonderful school, helped people to understand the need to do something, and the temporary boundary adjustment was the most supported course of action. The temporary boundary is not designed to reduce the size of Rosa Parks to its pre-2010 size. We need a new school to do that. The temporary boundary adjustment is designed to help ensure that Rosa Parks does not grow to over 1,000 and to provide some relief. The temporary boundary adjustment brings them to around 700 students for the next 3 years. This is smaller than they are now and smaller than they were last year, and they will continue to receive additional administrative support as they have in the past years. At the beginning of this process, I held parent meetings at both Rosa Parks and Wilder to share data and explain the need to call a temporary boundary committee to convene. In addition to hearing from Rosa Parks parents concerned about the size of Rosa Parks, and in addition to hearing from Rosa Parks parents who are not concerned with the current size of Rosa Parks and who didn't want their children to change schools, I have also heard from Rosa and Wild Parks parents who were concerned that the district might overload Wilder. I've also heard from a number of parents concerned about the number of all-day kindergartens that would be able to be offered at both schools after an adjustment is made. I believe it is important to listen to all voices in the process, and it is my job as superintendent, Tracy, to make a logical, balanced, and well-thought-out recommendation to the Lake Washington School Board of Directors, and the board must decide whether to approve the recommendation. In terms of the process used to inform my recommendation, I called for a temporary boundary committee to convene. That committee was facilitated by an objective third-party facilitator, and it included the principals of both Rosa Parks and Wilder Elementary, the director of school support for the Redmond Learning Community, the director of business services, the transportation manager, and the director of communications. The committee first sought community feedback on the criteria to use in helping them develop scenarios. These criteria included maintaining neighborhoods to the extent possible, minimizing transportation impacts, minimizing the number of students affected by the change, and using natural boundaries to the extent possible. Community members also suggested other criteria for the committee to consider, and these included proximity to school, mentioned by 21 families, keeping families together, 18, not to overload capacity at Wilder, 18, offering grandfather for older students, 15, Redmond Ridge East should go to Wilder, 13, students can walk to school should stay at Rosa Parks, mentioned by 13 respondents, and students that ride the bus already should be moved to Wilder, was mentioned by 12. Using these criteria as a guide, the committee pored over the data and developed 11 different possible scenarios, and then selected 3 they felt were the most logical, reasonable, and most reflected the criteria. The committee then held a community open house where they shared these 3 scenarios with parents and sought feedback from parents both at the open house and via the district website. Based on community feedback, including both Rosa Parks and Wilder parents, Scenario C emerged as the preferred scenario, well above either A or B. Some of the pros identified for Scenario C included Rosa Park returns to an all-walking school, keeping neighborhoods together, using natural boundaries, and no buses needed for Rosa Parks. Some of the cons that were identified was it seemed odd to have one community split from Redmond Ridge East. It would make more sense to send all of Deveron to one school, and Parks is still overcrowded. In addition, there were some additional comments that were provided, again, having all students in Redmond Ridge East go to Wilder, consider grandfathering for 4th grade students, not to create overcrowding at Wilder, considering about a plan to deal with students at the middle and high school level, and also comments about not liking any of the scenarios. Following the open house, the committee looked again at the feasibility of sending all of Redmond Ridge East to Wilder based on the fact that 42 people stated it was odd to have one community split from Redmond Ridge East. After again thoroughly looking at the number of classrooms available at each school and the enrollment numbers for each school, sending all of Redmond Ridge East to Wilder is not feasible. Both Wilder and Rosa Parks have portables. Rosa Parks has 10 and Wilder has 4. It costs $225,000 to move a portable, and we don't believe it's fiscally responsible to recommend a plan that would require moving portables as a result of the boundary adjustment. We do not use portables to add classroom capacity to schools we do use portables to add classroom capacity to schools when it's warranted, when enrollment warrants it, but we don't move them unless we absolutely have to because of the cost. We looked at both schools using their existing portables in the capacity and determined that moving all of Redmond Ridge East to Wilder would fill and potentially exceed Wilder's current classroom capacity, including portables, and enable them to only have one section of all-day kindergarten. Currently, Rosa Parks has 4 sections of all-day kindergarten. Scenario C allows both schools to have all-day kindergarten, and it moves a significant number of students from Rosa Parks to Wilder. Specifically, it would move 201 current students from Rosa Parks and 112 students projected from new development. That is 313 students in total. We are allowing grandfathering of the current 4th graders and their younger siblings for 1 year. If every family eligible takes advantage of grandfathering in 13-14, that would be a total of 42 students. Scenario C with grandfathering may look a little odd when you see it on the map. However, it is important to remember that this is only a temporary boundary designed to alleviate overcrowding at Rosa Parks. Redmond Ridge East area that will still attend Rosa Parks is currently on the walk route. If existing 9 students in the area request variance to Wilder, we will accommodate that request. And Scenario C with grandfathering, in summary, Scenario C with grandfathering meets the criteria established and has community support, allows for grandfathering, returns Rosa Parks to an all-walking school, returns Rosa Parks to a size that is within their capacity, including portables, and they will be smaller than they were last year, and makes Wilder's size within current capacity, including existing portables, and avoids requiring that portables be moved to Wilder at significant expense to the district. Therefore, Tracy includes in her recommendation that she is recommending Scenario C with grandfathering, and just I want to specifically state that that Wilder boundary is expanded effective September 2013, as indicated on the final boundary recommendation map. the area known as Redmond Ridge East, except for the neighborhood within the walking area bounded by Northeast 101st Place, 240th Avenue Northeast, Northeast 100th Street, known as Deveron by Murray Franklin, moves from Rosa Parks Elementary to Wilder Elementary. And in regards to grandfathering, that all current fourth grade students who would move to Rosa Parks next fall because of the temporary boundary change will be allowed to remain at Rosa Parks for the 2013-14 school year. Younger brothers and sisters of fourth grade students, including incoming kindergarten students who remain at Rosa Parks as indicated above, will be allowed to remain at Rosa Parks for the 13-14 school year only. For students who have selected to be grandfathered and are currently eligible for transportation, they, along with their younger siblings, will be eligible to receive transportation for the 2013-14 school year only. And Tracy indicates that she is seeking the board's approval for this recommendation.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this before we have discussion.
So moved.
A motion and a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation. I now open it to board discussion. Any
Well,
comments?
I think out of transparency, we should briefly describe the other two, I think it was the other there were two other scenarios or two other proposals. And just so that, you know, and again, in the instance of transparency, people know what we're choosing among.
Oh, A and B, you mean?
Yeah, the two options, whatever we're calling them.
I have the slide up.
I was going to say, are the slides from the, what was it, the 114?
I think you're not.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Session.
Yeah, January 14th. Are the slides from January 14th posted to the website?
Yes.
Yes.
Because if they are, then those fully describe A and B.
Okay. Is
And
it possible
verbally
for us
describing
to
those.
hold those up here? And I know Barbara's here and has all of her files. I'm not sure if she brought the big maps that we had
Yep.
at the last meeting.
They presented in the board meeting because I have the presentation that we can get it on the website.
I'm going to ask for Barbara, could you explain, you probably have the maps there in front of you, could you, and maybe on the document camera, if you have a copy that we could display on the document camera?
Well, while we're getting it together, I think this is an incredible amount of work. And, you know, there's no, I don't have any, I'm not trying to denigrate any work that's been done, but I think it's just really important, again, to show the public what was done to get to this point and the kind of work that it involves for staff, and that these things aren't done, you know, in a rash manner.
So while they're doing that piece, and I agree, Doug, I think it doesn't hurt to have a review of the three plans that were there. Does anyone else want to add some comments so we don't make them feel like we're just standing over them going, get this up there right now?
As far as, not so much a comment, I just wanted to clarify because I don't have a written version of that in front of me. Or do I?
No.
I have them.
Yes, you do.
Actually, I will.
You do.
Do that.
Thank you. Okay. So the
Tracy's report.
Yeah, I had asked quite specifically for clarification that the costs, even, we're obviously in the wrong business.
Yes, we are.
$250,000 to move a portable we already own blows my mind. But that is a large amount of money. And if it was just potentially inconvenient, that's one thing. Potentially $250,000 is not terribly prudent for us at this time. So that was what I wanted to make sure we had the actual number out for the scenarios, because
that's being recommended and why it's being recommended,
Tracy?
and then talk a little bit about the discussion that the board
She's talking
had.
on the, we've got the meeting live, so we have her chatting.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, so I had been concerned about that, but it really does, for example, one of the scenarios in the January 14th, all of Redmond Ridge East went over by a couple of classrooms worth, and that's $250,000 to $500,000 that we would be faced with just prior to a full-scale reboundary process. So now I've got a better grasp on exactly why. And that was my major thing. I wanted to be sure that I had understood that price tag, because I didn't want to believe it costs that much money to move a portable. I mean, having moved 10 of them over the course of the last 3 years, that's almost $2 million we've spent to put portables at Rosa Parks. Ouch. But given that that's where we are, avoiding more of that movement of them is a valid fiscal issue. Do you want to talk about getting to 10?
There's lots of reasons around what the decision-making process was after the failure of the 2010 bond and sort of the decisions that went there. But when you sort of look at the history of what's occurred, even with this reboundary, we get Rosa Parks to about 700 for the next 3 years is about where they're at. They go down a little bit and up a little bit. And Wilder's at about 550 over that course of time, which fits within where we have put those classrooms. And that's the piece, I think that's the challenge, especially for, is 700 a good size for an elementary school to be? So I think with all the community input we've had the opportunity from a variety of places, and I applaud staff being willing to do all that work, having attended those community meetings and had the opportunity to talk to parents from a variety of places. There comes a guiding principles I think we as a board need to look at that deals with what is a reasonable capacity. When we build a school, especially with a bond coming up in possibly 2014, if we build a built capacity for 500, do we know expansion could go to 700 and that's okay, but when do we know to trigger that we may need to do something more beyond what we've done? I think the challenge with Rosa Parks is decisions were made to put portables there, and it's gotten to a position that we can bring them back to 700, but truly getting below that would be difficult at this point in time due to the space being at Wilder and trying to be respectful of all those components within there. So that's a piece I think as a board, if we can help to define some of that guiding principle and policy, much as we did with the variances around high schools, saying we didn't want high schools to necessarily be over 2,000. That's sort of what our community values are and what we want to do. It's not that it holds it solid, but gives a range to work within.
I'd like to suggest that discussion happen when we're discussing our next ed spec that will be developed and utilized for the next modernization section. One of the issues that always comes up when we're building schools is capacity and how much overcapacity we can afford to build, because it is always bothersome that we tend to build our schools on the edge. But the reality is we spend roughly $225 a square foot on a building, and we have a very small match from the state. So it's our community that has to put that money up. And it is the nature of neighborhoods and children and families that numbers fluctuate, and therefore the perennial portable issue. And since I work statewide on this issue, I hear about it from a statewide perspective, and as frustrating as it is the reality that this is how schools who do not have lots of money to build and maintain empty space handle it. But I think it's a very valid question and discussion every time we do the EdSpec. It doesn't help us with the current issue, which is to deal with the mushrooming at Rosa Parks.
And I just want to remind, I agree, and I think we need to always have and continue, because it changes over time, and what may have been good 10 years ago is not necessarily good now. But we did try to address this. Unfortunately, I don't think we did as good a job with our community in getting their support, obviously, to pass the bond, so we wouldn't have been here today, where we are. That said, we also, I believe, dropped the ball in that we should have addressed this a year earlier, and we didn't. That being said, we are here and trying to make the best out of what we can in this interim time until we're able to do what we need to do as far as, one, letting the public know if we decide to do another building, the importance of it, and the importance district-wide, since it takes a district-wide election, and vote to support new growth and new buildings anywhere we are in the district. So, you know, and I agree, and I think the other piece that we need to be, I think, more clear with when we're talking with our public is what that additional capacity growth for that a particular building in any scenario, you know, be it Juanita Elementary, be it John Muir, be it Smith, be it Rosa Parks, how many portables can be housed on that particular property to take care of growth. Most of our schools probably cannot put 10 portables on their site just because of physically how they look. So that's another whole piece that I think that we have to look at. And unfortunately, in this setting, while there may be some empty portables after this at Rosa Parks, they probably will stay there. And I hope the community realizes that there won't be a movement of them because it costs money to take them off the property as well as put them on and then have a place for them to go. So they may be there and not used, all of them, at this in this interim time as well. And I hope the community understands the reason for that, because the cost is unfortunately exorbitant
And they will
this time.
But they'll have the opportunity for an awful lot of art rooms.
Yes.
Anyways, this is the interesting thing about this process has been that as a board, I'm sorry, I was about to speak on behalf of the board. As a board member, I sure don't like dealing with emergencies. I like dealing with policy. And so the process that has played out it is a grand compromise, as evidenced by the fact that not everybody is entirely happy with it, but it's probably the best threading of the needle we've got available. And from a board member perspective, I'm working with Tracy, and I think the rest of us are too, looking at the policies about how do we avoid this generic situation in the future. It is the sort of thing where hopefully policy can help us guide and prevent things downstream. So I really appreciate
I had my conversation with her, so poor Tracy, she's probably had 5 of them by now. So we will then have a joint conversation.
Right.
Because I think we're all frustrated, including our staff, that we got to this point.
Yeah.
So, but we need to make a decision tonight and move forward. Kindergarten registration, I guess, comes up quite soon.
Yeah. And
Like we have at least one of the scenarios in front of us.
Yeah, I think we've pulled up the information from the last board meeting, so Jackie, I can just briefly touch on these. In front of you, you have scenario A, and so I think that would best be described as the northern portion of both Redmond Ridge and Redmond Ridge East, with a little bit of an L shape. So it takes in maybe 3/4 of Redmond Ridge East, and then the north portion of Redmond Ridge. So that was one option that was looked at, and community feedback was sought on that scenario. And then from a map perspective, another scenario that was looked at was scenario B, and that was the majority of Redmond Ridge East, but rather than scenario C, where the small portion that remains in Rosa Parks is the section that's walking. In scenario B, it would be sort of I guess that would be the eastern southeastern leg of Redmond Ridge East, if I've got my directions correct. That section then would be maintained at Rosa Parks under scenario B. And then, Barbara, if you have scenario C there, as you can see, the difference between that and the option that is the recommended scenario that's being proposed, which is all of Redmond Ridge East with the exception of the, what we're calling as the Deveron area indicated by the streets that I read earlier and identified in the situation recommendation.
And sort of summarizing this is just 3 different ways to take a piece out of Redmond Ridge East to balance the schools and not force Wilder over, costing us lots and lots of money. I appreciate the challenge there, and I was, in reading the statement, I was pleased, and I just wanted to make sure I heard properly, around, there's 9 kids in that area who are currently affected, where they would be split off from Redmond Ridge East, and that they will, with those 9 students, it really doesn't take the projected enrollment at Wilder anything above scenario B, which is the one that tops out the largest at 566. I think that's as far as we can go in terms of the forecasted students. Now we're into the realm of how many new families will move in. There is a significant amount of uncertainty, and we really don't want to get blown out of the water by, I mean, isn't this whole area already a little bit more fertile than we usually estimate?
Yes,
more kids per
we are
household than
seeing
we're seeing?
higher
Yes.
student generation rates from the new family homes there. It's
I mean,
new
it's usually
single-family
1
homes.
kid per home, and
It's actually usually about a half a student per
Okay.
elementary. District-wide, it's about 1/2 of an elementary student per new single-family home development.
okay.
And this is, I think, almost 1, or maybe even a little bit greater than 1. Barbara probably has knows off the top of her head.
Overall, the whole Redmond Ridge East area is about a 0.5. So, and our actual rate is coming down. It's no longer half because that was K6, and now that it's K5, it's actually a little lower than that. But, so it's slightly higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the other thing I'd like to address is that the most comments that we've heard from the public since scenario C was mentioned was this little divot area here of Deveron. And in this last week, I know that we have had, prior to, or since the last board meeting and prior to that, we'd had a few people that had commented about keeping this with, and moving it, I'm sorry, not keeping it, but moving it with the rest of Redmond Ridge East. I'll say that the emails that I've looked at this week have been as many, if not more, going the other way, saying they don't want, especially from the Wilder community. I think up until this week we hadn't heard much from the Wilder community, but we've heard quite a bit this week about their concern about being overcrowded, having to have portables moved onto their property at this time, and again, with cost and all that. And so they were all willing to have more students, loving the idea of coming, but to hopefully that we would make a decision that would keep them not where they then are in a problem of overcrowding. So and that was some of the comments that we've heard this week. So I think right now we've got pretty much of a balance of numbers, and I can't tell you if I've heard from anybody who actually lives in that area telling me they don't want to move one way or the other.
But now it looks like they have a choice.
Yeah.
And I have one last clarification question around the part of the pain that has happened at Rosa Parks, and that is fundamentally that it's my understanding that we've got rules around not running or whatever. That, if we drop back to about the attendance of last year, those rules should go away. Yes.
Chris, I am.
I apologize. It just occurred to me, but that's the sort of thing where, just as a parent, I'd love to see that if you drop back to 713, that the rules that came in as we approached 800 would go away again.
I was going to say, during the public comment time, there was quite a bit around, sort of more of the logistical challenges of the numbers being there and the playground issues and just the gym space and the common space and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this certainly provides the school an opportunity to relook at, given their new enrollment size for next year, what of those things are, pieces that they will need to keep and what things will need to be repealed. So I don't want to speak on behalf of the school, because I think many of those are, I don't have all the details of why some of those things were done.
If I had thought of it yesterday, that would be fine.
But I do know that, given that they will have lower enrollment, certainly this opens up the opportunity for them to kind of reevaluate some of those things they've had to do and whether or not those will need to continue.
And I would imagine that parents will be asking those questions at the school to see what kind of adjustments can be made to kind of, with the scaled back of number of students, some of the things that can and cannot happen should change. And I certainly expect that that conversation would happen.
Kids have always been told they can't run at school.
Not even with scissors.
Yeah. And, you know, I'd rather they get to run, but I'm a rule breaker, so, I mean, that's been a rule at school for even in my old age. But back to this issue. I met with Tracy late on Friday to go over all the pros and cons because I was one of the people wondering why we were doing this little cutout of the Devron community or whatever it's exactly pronounced, however it's pronounced, and went over the numbers and the emails that we have received. And in all honesty, we really haven't received that many emails.
And we haven't.
There have been a handful from the same group of Rosa Parks parents who are still not happy because of, even with these numbers going to Wilder, there will still be large numbers at Rosa Parks. At this point in time, we cannot adjust that any more than we've adjusted it. 700 may seem really large, but we have had other elementary schools, may now, because I don't always keep track of it. We do have elementary schools that come up and down in those numbers. There are always pros and cons, even with the ones that weren't built for it. We have had almost no emails other than that small group of concerned parents commenting one way or the other. We have had, I think, only one email from a Rosa Parks parent saying, hey, it's just fine. Why are people bothering so much about this? We've adjusted quite well. We've had originally just a couple Wilder parents and today a few more who, you know, like scenario C. If we're going to do anything, keep scenario C. So overall, if you were adding up emails, which I don't really tend to like to do, you would say we go with scenario C anyway. But I think what it showed to me is that outside of a small number of parents, we have not generated a lot of you know, anxiety about this. And as Tracy pointed out, in the public meetings and the public process, the majority of the people who participated supported scenario C. So based on that, based on the numbers that have been worked as carefully as numbers can be, I'm ready to support the scenario C that that was developed through this whole process. It seems to me the best that we can come up with at this point in time to solve the multitude of issues.
Any other comments? Siri? Doug?
I guess the one piece I'd like is the community input was, I'm thankful for the amount of community that actually was involved. The community meetings were incredibly well attended. I think that community input helped to push a lot of those criteria and some of the bigger policy decisions that we've talked about of needing to do, and I think that needs to be recognized so that we don't end up here again.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. That and all of that input resulted in this scenario being the first choice, and since that was made, we've had very little further.
True. I just wanted to make sure that those who gave that input and their time recognize that
How
whereas
valuable it
this
was.
might not necessarily relate that input was heard and listened, it is setting a stage for a much bigger policy discussion in the future to be able to look at our capacity and set those community values around what is a size. You know, Wilder doesn't want to be at 700. We must have a community value out there that is somehow, you know, we're there with something. So that's the piece.
Right.
So the piece I'm just trying to is recognize our community value, and it's, at this point, the advantage of that puzzle piece is that is the built-up component of Devron. Those houses are done. So it's a little easier to project as to what kids will be there. The other components are not built up. So you've had that opportunity for the projections not to be as solid. because it's harder to project what families move in. So I guess that would be my line of, I'd like to thank the community for being involved, and also that we went out to the public and talked and took a very complicated issue that could be very divisive and have been able to have the conversation to do so.
And I thank them for actually, I mean, this is one of those things where as a parent, you sometimes just suck it up. But eventually, you realize that if you say something and you work with the team, we're not here to impose things upon you. We're here to try and help things work as best we can. In this case, solving the emergency, whatever solution we come to, I think is the less important part about this conversation. I think, honestly, we as a school board, and it's not just us, it's all school boards, are averse to boundary issues. And coming up with ways to sort of anticipate this particular problem before it's critical is something that it may be a little bit more awkward for us down the stream to go to the community and tell them, you guys need a temporary boundary process, before they realize they need a temporary boundary process. But honestly, that would probably be the better long-term solution for some of these problems.
But again, I think I'd remind us that, in terms of policy, and I know you make a good point, that, as a district, we did anticipate that there was going to be a need for more space out there. And the voters, in their wisdom, decided that that was not the case. And so that puts the burden on us, especially in 2014, next year, to really make the case that not only will we have to rebuild a certain high school that we're well aware of, but that we're going to need more elementary school space throughout the district. And we're going to need to remodel some additional space. And so the burden's going to be on us to do that in an effective way so that we don't get into this kind of emergency situation. And it's going to be a tough thing, and it's also kind of reminding other parts of the community that at one time people voted for their space.
That's right.
And so that's going to be our challenge.
Yep. And that's always a big one when we're looking at levies and bonds. So any other comments? If not, before I do a vote, I do want to thank Barbara and the committee that were involved, and Catherine's in the back and Steve's in the back, and it takes a lot of time and effort, and appreciate very much your listening to the community and looking at the numbers and trying to be as objective as you possibly could to coming up with a scenario that you felt was best for all the students that are involved so that they can have quality space as well as education in both their environments. So I want to thank all of them. So no more discussion. I'll entertain a vote. So all those in favor of accepting the temporary boundary recommendation from Dr. Pierce, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And Jackie, just before we go on, Tracy asked me to share some comments, thanks as well from her. And she would like to sincerely thank the Temporary Boundary Committee also for their hard work and dedication through the process, as well as to thank the parents and those who participated, both from Rosa Parks and Wilder, for participating in the input, for taking it very seriously. So again, I think she echoes many of the comments that you have shared here. And again, I think also echoing that we want to highlight that we are planning for the 2014 bond. Yes. And we are looking at building capacity not only for the Redmond learning community, but also district-wide, and working with the board to set those kind of guidelines and criteria that will help us at looking at school size at each level, elementary, middle, and high school, and examining our practice in terms of using portables as a strategy for expanding school capacity. So in our long-term planning, we'll be working with the upcoming bond to avoid such a situation repeating in the future, recognizing, I think, as we've all said, that our ability to solve these capacity and student enrollment issues and challenges is really predicated on the support of our communities in our bonds and levies. So again, just wanted to share those comments from Tracy.
Okay, great. Thank you. And now this is all ready, so the information can get out, and those people who have kindergartners can know where they need to register for kindergarten on February 7th, right?
Right. Thank you very much, Steve and Barbara and Catherine, who are here, who participated in the process. appreciate your time and energy and dedication to coming up with the solution. So thank you.
Okay, our next item is our monitoring board policy of ER1. This is one we tabled from our last meeting, because we were going a little long. So we're all fresh tonight at 6:22 instead of 9:22 to hear this wonderful report.
So Heather is going to provide us the ENDS monitoring report for ER1.
Good evening, thank you. As Janine said, this is our ER monitoring report, and this is the ENDS result, number one, that talks about lagging indicators of high school graduates. It also will give us some information about what our students are doing once they leave. This is a slide you've seen, I think, 4 times already, but this is part of our reporting calendar. We've already done primary, intermediate, junior high, and senior high. This data will be disaggregated by groups: ethnic, free and reduced, lunch, gender, students who are in different programs, be reported district-wide, built upon actual individual student performance data, and where appropriate, show a progression of class performance over time and show cohort data. I believe these are the leading indicators that the board has determined define college and future readiness: on-time student graduation rate, number of non-grads with reasons and dropout rate is measured by district data, entrance exam test data measured by the ACT and SAT by content area, AP pass rate, state high school assessment pass rates by class, culminating project pass rate, remediation rates in college measured by the Washington State Follow-Along Study, student attendance by college type, 2-year, 4-year, public, private, measured by the National Student Clearinghouse data, and then multi-year college graduation rates, again measured by the Clearinghouse. Just a reminder that our mission is that each student will graduate prepared to lead a rewarding, responsible life as a contributing member of our community and greater society. And our vision is every student future ready, prepared for college, prepared for the global workplace, and prepared for personal success. So the first slide here is talking about our graduation rates. There's a couple of different numbers that I want to take a minute and explain. We have on 2012, 2011, and 2010, we have 2 different on-time graduation rates. The rate in bold is what the state reported. The first number is our calculations, and what we discovered earlier this year was an inconsistency in how data was entered into our system. We've contacted the state, and we'll be reporting the data correctly moving forward. But we've also, and I'll talk a little bit about this later on, we've also had a change in how the grad rates are determined. And it'll make more sense here in a second. What's interesting, if you look at the second column, 2011, our extended total of graduates, we have a 96.0%. So our students that we hold in our system and continue into the 5th and sometimes even 6th year, we have a pretty good success rate of graduating those students. Also, I thought we pulled out some additional data on, it's not reflected here in the slide, but out of the grads from last year, how many of our students took 2 or more credits in world language? And it was 76%. and that is, not a requirement yet. We had 88% of our students taking 3 or more science credits. We had 36% of our students taking 2 or more art credits, and we had 77% of our students with 24 or more total credits, and 22 is the magic number for graduation. When we compare ourselves to our neighboring districts, we have a 93.9% of on-time graduation rate, and you can see how that compares with Bellevue, Issaquah, North Shore, and the state. And again, our extended graduation rate is higher. We do believe the number of students graduating should be 100%, and that is our goal, and a goal that our high school set this year as well. Having a goal and then figuring out how to get there is the other thing. So we have begun looking at retrieval programs, credit retrieval programs, what kind of support systems that we can put in place for our students who might be in danger of not graduating. That information is started to be collected early on in a student's high school career. Letters are sent home, you're on track for graduation, you're behind in graduation. But this January, after semester grades are in, each of our high schools are going to be turning in to their directors of school support a list of students who might be in danger of not graduating, and following up with what is the plan, how are you going to communicate with parents, what are you going to put into place to help ensure that the youngster graduates.
Would you back up 1 second? I guess I'm kind of confused. Okay, those are state on time. Never mind, go ahead. Okay. I just needed to reread it.
This is our non-graduate report. I'll let you just look for a second. Across the top, starting in 2012, the number of students who were non-grads, number who are active in the next year, that would be our students that are continuing on, number of inactive in the next year, and then the number not meeting standard on state assessments. That was the reason they didn't graduate. We had 5. Number of students who didn't graduate because they didn't have enough credits, we had 1, and that was the only reason. The number missing only district performance-based requirement, we had 1 student. We had 8 students missing the culminating project or the high school and beyond. And then we had 73 students with a combination of the state assessment, performance requirements, and credits. I think it's important to note here that we do have a higher number of non-grads this year. And part of that is, we know we have a lot of students who are continuing at Bellevue College or Running Start, and this is the second year of the new law, or last year, I'm sorry, was the second year of students who could earn a high school diploma at the same time they earned an AA degree. So it was possible for a student to be a full-time Running Start student, not have to meet any of our requirements for graduation, like culminating project or anything of that sort, and when they earned their AA degree, the granting institution would then give them a high school diploma if they asked for it. Those students are considered dropouts for us.
Is that why the 106 is higher, the inactives?
Yes. Yes.
Is it possible for us to get numbers on how enrollment in that program?
I'm sorry, Chris?
Is it possible for us to get enrollment numbers in that program, to know of those 106?
We can give you Running Start, students who are enrolled in Running Start. What we can't give you is a student
if they finish the AA. Yeah,
may
that's all right.
decide up until, what we've told counselors and high school administrators is you need to continue to track those students. You need to continue to send the letters home saying your son or your daughter has not met these graduation requirements, they're not on track with the culminating project, et cetera, et cetera. Even though the student may sign a letter of intent that they're going to get their AA degree and their high school diploma through the community college, they may change their mind at the last minute. So we have to, do due diligence.
So for those letters, do those letters have a special, are they just the same letter that everybody else would get? Or are these, because, honestly, if I'm going for an AA degree and I keep getting pestering letters telling me I'm not on track to graduate from high school and I know I'm going for the AA, that kind of, honestly, that would make me grumpy.
It is the same letter.
Yeah.
Because we don't know for sure. We know that high school students sometimes change their minds.
Oh, granted.
And so if they went ahead and said, my intent is to go to Bellevue College and get an AA degree and then I'll get my high school diploma, they may think that at the beginning of their junior year and then may change their mind. Or they may think their senior year, second semester, gosh, I'm so close to an AA degree, I think I'm just going to go do that and not do my culminating project.
Right. Actually, I was just thinking along the lines of there ought to be a caveat in that letter. Please disregard if you are getting your AA.
Thank you for that, because we have, we did develop a letter, and it wasn't binding by any means, but it just informed families and the student that if you have an intent to earn an AA degree, please note that you will continue to get letters home, and if you're on track to earn your AA, you can disregard these letters.
Okay.
Can we develop some relation with a community college where they're likely to be going, like BC and like Washington Institute, to sort of get are these kids still enrolled every year, just to get an idea as to are they continuing down that path or did they drop out? I'd throw the letter away, I have to admit, so I'm looking for a more consistent place that you could find the data.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just didn't hear that.
So I want to make sure I understand the question.
Yeah.
For the students who are choosing to be in Running Start and saying they're going to get their AA degree, so they're no longer in our system.
Right.
Can you say asking, can you develop a relationship with Bellevue College or our close community colleges? Are these students still enrolled?
Gotcha.
And then we can at least track them once a year to say, yes, still enrolled and doing this. Then we don't claim them as necessarily as a drop. It gives you an idea as are they dropping out or really are they just pursuing a different pathway?
But I'm hearing from you that we have to count them as dropouts. And so it says to me the next step is we need to be working with our legislators who continue to say Running Start is a great thing to change how those kids are counted. If they're doing what you just said, they're still enrolled in that program, they shouldn't be dropped out of, necessarily a dropout out of the public school.
Right, and so that's the way it's reported now. We maybe will be able to collect the data that says, X amount went on to get their AAs, knowing that, in our own data, we could say we could back those out of our dropout.
Right, and then we can at least say of these 100 kids who show up as a dropout, we know 90% of them graduated with an AA degree, and that gives us pressure with the legislature as well in which to push that component, so it provides due components.
Yep, I agree.
And I have a little more data later on that gives us some 2-year information. So this is the slide I was alluding to a few minutes earlier. The state of Washington was directed by the U.S. Department of Education to begin using a new graduation rate calculation for 10-11 school year. This new adjusted cohort method tracks a single cohort of students over 4 or 5 years. It used to be that graduation rates were calculated during the year. So any student, regardless of what they would have been the class of, if they graduated in that year, they were part of the graduating class. Now what they're saying is once you enter a class in the 9th grade, that is your 4 years later, your graduating class. So you are the class of. So that's how now dropout reporting will be done. So I'm on the fourth bullet down. After reporting both methods for 11 and 12 school year, in February of 13, OSPI will only report using the new calculation. So if you get on to the report card, you will now start to see a difference if you toggle back between years. This is, these averages are state averages, but the new adjusted cohort method yields a 76.6% four-year state graduation rate among students who first began ninth grade in 07-08, the class of 2011. This is slightly higher than the class of 2010, which had a state graduation rate of 75.4.
That sort of, I just love this stuff. This is what gives statisticians a bad name. We just got 1.2% more graduation by finagling how we calculate the statistic. I love it.
But the goal is to have one method.
Oh, I'm not disputing that we shouldn't have one method for the future for everybody, but yes. It's just really funny.
What it also allows us to do is do comparison data amongst all 50 states, because now they're reporting it the same way. I understand that this is a little bit different calculation of information for you than it has been in years past. We went ahead and pulled apart choice schools and alternative schools. I think in years past it's been all, choice schools were together. So the asterisks in the middle there reflect in previous years, these were combined with choice schools. So now in 2012, we had 3.4% of our students who did not graduate. The choice schools with an N of 61 had 0, so all of their students graduated. Alternative schools with an N of 111, 32.4 did not graduate. And then our held data that has not been released to the state, it's an overall average of 5.2.
So, sorry, my brain's, the 3.4% of 1,500 is 45 kids. That doesn't match with any of the numbers from the 2012 column on the previous slide. So, 165 or 53? Is 53 the...
Over here.
53, Chris, is the number of kids that are still active going into next year.
Right. So 165 minus 53 would be the set that were inactive. None of these numbers is 3.4% of 1,498 students. So I'm just trying to understand what the 3.4% is.
Well, they've taken out the alternative schools and the choice schools, right?
Well,
Right.
30% of alternative schools, that's 35 kids, 0 of 61, so we've got 35 plus.
About 80. About 80.
Yeah, they've got about 80 kids accounted for out of either 160 or 100. Either way, it just doesn't, the numbers don't add. So I'm just wondering where the rest of them went. And this isn't something where I don't want you to solve this on the spot. I want these numbers to match the numbers from the previous slide somehow.
Okay, we can take a look at that and the math behind it and either see if it makes sense and explain why it does, or make sure that the slide gets corrected. So
One of these slides I think is off, I just don't know which one.
Because if you add the rows on the ends result 1 monitoring, it doesn't add to 165 across either. So there might be something funky.
Additionally,
On that one, the next two columns do add up. 165 is 106 plus 50, whatever it was.
That's 159.
Plus, we had
Okay.
4
Yeah,
students.
anyway, yeah.
We have 4 students who were at Wanik. That was also, and then we had 2 students who were deceased.
Oh, dear.
Right.
additionally, the alternative schools, I'm only thinking of 2. I didn't know we called Wanik a school.
Wanik is not in this mix with the alternative school. It's students that didn't graduate but continued on at Wanik.
So who is included in the
Heather's on the
alternative
other
schools?
chart. Heather's on the first chart. She was explaining, I think Nancy's looking at the current chart, the chart with the 3.4%.
Right, the one that's up. Yeah.
The reference to Wanik was on the
Yes,
chart, earlier chart,
yes.
so I just to
The
clarify.
Wanik was on the previous two slides. Who's considered in our choice, or I mean our alternatives? It would be Emerson, Future, and Emerson K-12.
So there may be differences within those three schools. In fact, I'm quite certain that there are that are hidden in this number, so eventually I'd like to see the data. I mean, we can't lose track of tracking that because of what it means to those schools and their futures and the resources they need.
So if I were in Running Start, thinking of what you said before, would I show up in here?
You, depending on what your home, which was your home school. So one of the reasons the alternative school has 32.4% is several Emerson K-12 students do not graduate. They go on to either Running Start or they are homeschooled. So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so disaggregating that N of 165, the gender is pretty self-explanatory of our kids who did not graduate. Our ethnicity, Hispanic, you know, as I think I've said every time I've stood up here this fall, continues to be a concern, and it's something that we, you know, have to pay attention to and ask why. Special ed, that number 29.5 was disturbing to me. We have Kevin's Law in the state, which allows the students who have an IEP to graduate with their class even though they haven't fulfilled all of their requirements, and then they can come back the year after. So we have 16, I'm sorry, we have 26 still active, but we had 13 exit before finishing. So, you know, again, this is data we're going to share with our special ed department.
Well, wait, Heather, the special ed kids are with us until they're 21.
They are, but we had 13 leave our system, 13 kids.
Just go where?
That's what we're going to be looking into. So we have 26 of those students who are still active, who are continuing forward, but why aren't the other 13?
Yeah, we need to know that specifically.
Yes. And then of the Hispanic students, we had 16 students leave before graduation date in June, and 13 are still active in our system. And again, that's, you know, where are those 16 kids?
Do we have the resources to follow up individually on these kids with phone calls and visits?
Nancy, I think that is part of what we are doing this right now with our high schools. You know, I want those children identified. I want to know where they are, what's going on with them. Once they leave our system, we don't really have the means to track them. We can go back, you know, to old numbers, or, I mean, it's...
Right, if the family moves.
So it sounds like you're being proactive now, hopefully identifying prior to their leaving the system to be able to track and figure out. Okay, good.
Okay, this is some new data that you haven't seen before.
Second?
Yes.
The non-low income and low income. I mean, that's, again, a fairly large disparity within what our low income population that we serve. That's about double our rate.
Yeah, 32, I mean,
And
over a
about
third
15.
of our 165 are low income. Yes.
We got to do better there.
Yes. So this is some new information, new data sets that I don't think you saw last year. It is reported on the OSPI report card site. You're going to see 5 charts. The first one is going to be our high school graduates who are enrolled in post-secondary. You're going to see a slide with attendance specific to in-state, public 4-year universities. A third slide on demographic characteristics of graduates enrolled in post-secondary. Another slide of pre-graduation indicators by post-secondary status. And then those who enrolled in post-secondary education, the percentage who needed remediation once they were in college.
Heather,
yes.
On this Running Start thing, okay, you leave high school, you're now considered a dropout in our system because you went over to Running Start and you're going over for your AA. But you graduate, you leave there and now have a diploma. Do they get counted now as a high school graduate in these figures?
Not for us.
Not for us.
The institute who gives the
So
diploma.
they're a Cascadia grad now, high school graduate, or a Bellevue or whatever.
It's an interesting conversation I had with an individual OSPI asking that question. How, if the state has determined that some of these requirements, like a culminating project, are important enough to have as a requirement, why are we saying that a student who chooses to get an AA degree doesn't need to fulfill a culminating project? And
good question.
The answer was, we think an AA degree, if someone can get an AA degree, they should be able to earn a high school diploma. So they don't have to fulfill that requirement.
I just have a problem with them being considered as a dropout out of our system, but I guess that's just how it's going to be. Okay, because they really are being successful. I mean, I think that's not showing that we have students that are successful. I mean, it just gives I just wish there was a way that you could take that set of kids who are in that program and have another column for them that you're following, you know, even if they're not ours, and that we could take them off of our dropout list to put them into there. I just think that would be a more honest.
True, but I think we can explain what it might be if we have that extra column.
Yes, that would help. So that would make me feel a little better that those 106 of 70, some of them have earned a AA degree and whatever somewhere else, which means we only have 30-some kids who really dropped out. I would feel better if we could do that.
So this slide represents class of 2010, and their enrollment by the type of institution in post-secondary. The middle column represents Lake Washington. The far right column are percentage of enrollment statewide. So as we went over this in Cabinet, Janine, you'll help me orient ourselves to this, but we had in our district 1,507 graduates in 2010. Of that 1,500 plus, 79% of them went to a 2-year or 4-year post-secondary. Of that 79%, 78% stayed in Washington. 41% went to a 4-year public, 7% went to a private 4-year, 30% went to a 2-year, and less than 1% went to a private 2-year. Of the 79% who went to college, 22% went out of state. 9% went to a public 4-year, 11% to a private 4-year, 2% to a public 2-year, and less than 2%, or I'm sorry, less than 1% for a private. Jackie, I wanted to make sure I created this slide for you.
Okay. Back on the other one, we don't have an idea, you know, of the students who did not go to college, where they went, right? I mean, I'm thinking some may have gone to military, And there's no way that we have, that data is not collected anywhere.
And it's interesting, you know, Tracy and I, in looking at this, you'll see later on in the National Clearinghouse data, there's some discrepancy between this data and the National Clearinghouse of about 200 kids. And so what is reported out to, what constitutes a post-high school experience? What are we counting as 2 years? Is it a community college? Does the technical college count? Does Renton, Bates, those kinds of things? So
yeah.
I think, again, as we get more refined in our data, we need to continue to ask those questions.
And the other piece, I mean, our public 4-year is much higher than what the state is, but I think that's also because BC shifted to a 4-year degree program. So it's sort of.
It is, and we have more students going out of state than the state average. So what 4-year universities or colleges did our graduates go to? Bellevue College, 21%. Coming in, a close second, University of Washington.
It's interesting, this thing of the Bellevue College, because we had this conversation when we were at Cascadia the other day, is their name of Bellevue College is kind of is misleading, because they still essentially are a 2-year college or community college, and they just have, I think they told us 2 programs that were 4 years. Is that what they said, Doug? 2 or 3? 2 or 3 programs that are really 4-year. So essentially they still are.
Well, they're legally constituted as a community college.
Yeah, so they're a little.
It's a marketing.
So the 21%, some of them may be in the 4-year part, but a bunch of them probably, the lion's share of them really are probably in the 2-year part.
Absolutely. They have very limited programs for 4-year.
Yeah.
Okay. The next are demographics for the class of 2010 by post-secondary status. So we.
Sorry, can we just go back one slide? When we're taking slices and then sub-slices, the percentages start to get arbitrary. When you show this next time, can you include the N associated with each of those? So if 21%, is 21% 20 students out of 100, or is 21% 200 out of 1,000? So here on this slide, you had 79% directly above 78%. So if you look at the second column, percent going to college, 79%. Washington, paren of those attending, 78%. Those numbers look very similar, but it's 78% of the 79%. Yes. I want to know the N.
Yes.
So that helps me interpret it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think we can do the math on that. My recollection is the data, that the way they provided the data doesn't include that information, but we can certainly do the extrapolation.
Yeah, we can back it out.
But we can certainly.
I'll talk to my state colleagues in the stats department.
It may be there, but I just, yeah.
Okay, so again, please let me orient you to this slide a little bit. Across the top, we have students who enrolled in a 2-year program, students who enrolled in a 4-year program, students who were not enrolled in post-secondary, and then the total grads. So when you add up.
This was the 1,500 plus students, right?
Yes.
Well, so this is a slide where there's a lot of information, but not what I am interested in from a policy perspective. The only thing I care about is if any of these parameters are predictable. That is the ethnicity different among those who are not enrolled or are enrolled? If it is, bring it to our attention.
So let me
Otherwise,
give you
don't show me the whole table.
Let me give you a couple of.
Female to male is not
of the
significantly
total number?
different, period. If you look at female to male, statistically across all these categories, there are no differences. Don't show me something that's invariant. It's a waste of time and space, and it takes focus away from what we do care about.
Okay. So of the total number of students who graduated, 76 were white, Of the total of students who did not enroll in a post-secondary, 71% were white. So that's close, right? Comparable. However, Hispanic students make up 5% of our graduates, but 11% were not enrolled, compared to 11% statewide with 14% not enrolled.
Now, here's where we get into statistical sampling theory. The difference between 76% and 71%, given this much larger base number, is probably statistically significant. The difference between 5% of not many and 11% of even less of not many is probably not. From a statistical standpoint, those numbers are almost certainly equivalent because the 11%, what fraction of our population is Hispanic, and what fraction of them did not enroll? This is a set of maybe 12, 15 students. 11% of 9 students is 1 student. 22% of 9 students is 2 students. 1 student's change could change that number dramatically, and it means nothing statistically. So anyway, this is something where I'm interested in what's meaningfully different year to year, not what changed. So, and I'd be happy to actually do the calculations for you. I just unfortunately can't get out the presentation, otherwise I'd have already done it.
It doesn't end.
So what you'd like to see is in this slide is if
Well, it's not even looking at the slide. It's basically if there's something that's meaningfully different. I mean, if in our demographics of who's enrolling, is there something where our kids who are Hispanic are enrolling at rates that are significantly different than our white kids? I'm worried about that. But if, on the other hand, it's a fluctuation of 1 or 2 students, it can look like a lot of percent, but it doesn't mean anything from a statistical standpoint. Next year we could sample it again, and it's going to give you a different answer, and all of a sudden our whites are underperforming the Hispanics. So that's something where applying some slightly more sophisticated math, and it's not terribly sophisticated, will actually help us focus on what we need to worry about as opposed to what's just noise in the data.
How about the free and reduced portion?
The free and reduced portion that's one of those that is real. That's the sort of thing that should light up, because that number, we've got enough kids on free and reduced, and it's so different for them relative to non-free and reduced. That's a meaningful difference. In 4-year enrolled, 84% if you're not on free and reduced, and 16% if you are. I mean, that's not just well, maybe that's actually calculated as, oh no, these are calculated just as the percent. One's the negative, one minus the other. But if it was something where of the free and reduced kids,
Yes,
5%
exactly
of
how
them
you
went
want
to
it.
school. And so instead of just what fraction of them were free and reduced, what fraction of free and reduced went to school is the more interesting question.
It needs to be
Yeah,
transposed
yeah.
and have the column the other
But
way.
anyway, this is something where I can rather than telling you, here, I want you to do this, with the data I can show you how I'd like to see it next time, because it'll help us all focus in on the things to worry about as opposed to the things that changed. Things will change every year, as long as you're having new data. If you just use the same data over and over, it won't change year to year, right? But there will be little fluctuations, and are they trends that mean something or not? That's where statistics gives us some leverage to actually understand when we need to worry. I've only got so much capacity for worrying. That's really what it comes down to. So.
And then the other piece would be what questions being answered by looking at it.
Yeah.
And so what are we trying to look at here? Are we looking for gaps in that we're not serving a population as well as we should? What's the purpose behind it? And then that can help drive how you want to present it.
So I'm afraid I'm going to put another slide up that.
That's all right.
Whoops.
You're forewarned.
You just don't have to repeat yourself.
So we won't spend a lot of time here. It's probably no big surprise, but students with GPAs less than 3.0. We had a fewer number enrolled in a 4-year university. Students with greater GPA, a larger number enrolled in 4-year. At that time, it was still the WASL standard in reading. 58% enrolled in a 4-year. Met WASL proficiency standard in math, 65.
And here, ironically, sorry, I just have to show you the sort of things that are a significant difference where I don't think it's our problem. If our kids have a GPA less than 3.0, they are less likely to go to a 4-year college. Good. That means that our grades mean something. So I'm not worried about that difference, even though it's statistically significant.
Okay, this slide is of the students enrolled, the percent who required pre-college coursework in math, and essentially were taking lower than 100 level classes in college.
Is this remediation at college?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is, once they were in college, they weren't ready to begin 100 level or above classes.
Half of our students who enrolled in a 2-year college needed remedial work of some kind.
Yes.
Okay. Which doesn't imply we are meeting end result 1 very well with those students.
Mm-hmm. And then of those students enrolled, I'm now towards the bottom of the chart. The percent who were continuously enrolled, stayed in college that first year, 70%, 92% were enrolled in 12 or more credits.
So how do we get this data? I've always been curious. Are the universities and the colleges supplying it to OSBI?
This data is now through the Washington Report Card. It's the Education Research and Data Center.
I understand that.
Oh.
But it's still interesting. I mean, this means that the colleges are reporting it back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, are they doing a sample? Are they doing the whole numbers? How reliable are these numbers, being as how it's not a system I actually have a lot of trust in?
It's a good question, Nancy.
And I need remembering how many kiddos we're talking about again. You know, when I look at the percent enrolled in 2 year of that 1,500, kind of how many is that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you have it, it's just keeping it, so maybe we need to make sure that kind of travels to its new chart.
I think Chris mentioned that earlier, too. So
Yeah.
I think, Heather, can you stay there for just a minute? I think we're talking, right now, you're on a 2-year, right, Heather? That was 2 years, so
Yes.
30%.
Plus this one here? Are we only about 31%? I'm assuming we're counting in-state
was
and not
just
out-of-state.
in-state, yes.
Okay, so it's about 30%, a little less than 31%.
So 30% of 79.
Yeah.
Of
So,
79.
yeah,
So
79.
1507 times 79% times
Yeah.
30%.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I think the main question is, how reliable is the data? We haven't received a lot of really reliable data through any of the OSPI networks. And that's really important information to know. How many of our kids really do leave us needing remediation?
Yeah.
But not only how many, but why?
Well, that was one of the interesting conversations at Cascadia when we were there, is they are beginning to work closely in North Shore, because that's where a lot of their kids come from, but they're starting to work more. That was part of the reason of gathering, was to work more with us as well as Riverview, because we are considered their population of who should attend there. And one of their goals is to work more closely with our high schools about what their remediation course looks like, what our students and seniors in high school who may be weak in math, what can they take, and how do you marriage from the remediation from the college into the high school more, so that when they if they can pass it in high school, they don't have to take the remediation in college. And so they're really trying to do that, and they're starting pretty successfully in North Shore. It's taken a lot of work. You know, they had to work with teachers from both sides, that they can get together, that can collaborate and develop a curriculum. But they have been able to do that, so these kids, when they leave high school, do have the math skills that allows them to enroll at Cascadia in their first year of math, college level, not in a remediation course. when they're talking about how to do that in other courses, but math is the biggest one they're working on right now. It's very interesting, but I think it's an important piece to get to this whole piece of those kids that are not successful necessarily still in math by the time they're seniors, and then have to do the remediation. And maybe, and as they said, that's kind of a negative and a stigma on some of the kids who don't stay is because of that. So trying to figure a way to make a better partnership between the levels.
It'll be interesting, too, I think, to track this in the next couple of years now that we have a requirement of 3 years of math.
Yep.
For graduation, this is the first year for this first class. Okay, ready to move on to ACT? This chart basically explains the ACT information provides information about college level readiness in subject areas. The chart is a predictor. For example, 91% of our students are predicted to be college ready for college English composition, compared to the state's percentage of 76.
And this is among those who take the ACT.
And this is for the students who took the ACT.
Which is what percentage?
And I've got that slide coming up, so.
But these are students planning on college. That's another piece to think about. They're taking the ACT with the idea of going to
They're
college.
self-selected.
So they're self-selecting, but at the same time, if they're still not meeting all 4 requirements, and this is our self-selecting group that's looking at college, it's an interesting.
Right.
Yep.
And so this is, 22 is the benchmark that ACT has determined a student to be college ready in math. Students who have taken the sequence of 4 math classes, including calculus, have an average ACT score of 26.1. So basically saying the more math you take in high school, the more successful you will be in high school. The higher level of math a student takes substantially increases their ACT math score.
So that's, there's an irony in that last set of columns. Taking 3 years versus less than 3 years does you no good. Anyway, 19.7 versus 19.5. Anyway.
Well, and our new requirement is really the ALGE, geometry and trig, and encouraging students to stay with it. So,
but that's not that big a difference from those who took less than 3 either, if you're looking at percentage.
It actually is probably not significant even, but at least if you test it, there's a trend here.
Yeah.
More years of math, better you're doing. So.
And the same is true for science. Similar to math, the more science a student takes, the greater probability she'll have a higher science score.
Makes sense.
Now, the interesting thing in looking at this one is knowing how our high school science curriculum is currently established. You can't get to physics if you go through the traditional course until your senior year, yet you're taking this test at the end of your junior year, beginning of your senior year. So we're limiting our students with the manner in which we don't allow biology in the process to begin earlier.
Unless you double up on your science.
Which is difficult in many places in which to do so. But yeah, it was one of those pieces when I looked at this, I wasn't sure our curriculum was aligning well in some of the concept of, why not biology in 9th grade? Sorry, just a thought when looking at the data, how that can feed what our programs do too.
And we are going to take a look at our science pathways as we're moving into the science adoption, which I believe is next fall. Right now, we're in it. We're beginning that look. So.
Oh, good, because I'm with you, coming from 4-year high schools that had biology as a 9th grader.
I mean, we do it in our district. ICS does it in 7th grade. STEM's doing it in 9th grade. There's no reason that we couldn't be doing this in all our schools, so.
Wow, you've opened the can of worms. Doing physics before you do calculus is silly. Anyway, that's just an opinion.
Well, and then there's that whole opinion that wants to flip-flop and do it the other way, totally.
Which is wrong, but that's okay. They're allowed to have their opinion.
Nancy, you were asking how many of our students take the ACT? 485.
Out of about 1,500.
SAT is,
Is that only seniors, or does that include juniors who, I'm just curious.
this is,
Is it for a class of that they're
yes,
reporting?
it's a class of 2012, so they may have taken it as juniors, because later on you'll see our SAT slide, and we have students who've taken it a few times, so there are more tests reflected than students. But our ACT scores have stayed pretty consistent over time.
I think that ACT is somewhat self-selecting, too.
It is.
Yeah.
The kids who take the ACT are doing it for strategic reasons, because it's a different type of test, and I suspect they think or know that they will score higher on the ACT than the SAT because of the type of test it is.
Well, and this is something that's interesting. Is it next year that we're actually doing the PSAT in all kids?
We did it this year.
Is this year?
Doing it.
Oh, right, we don't have
We
the
had
data
the
yet.
universal
Yeah.
PSAT.
Yeah. Okay. I'm very excited to see that.
So from 2008 to 2012, we had an increase of 92 students taking the ACT. This is just another slice to look at the data. I won't spend a lot of time here. This is, again, data that is similar to what you've already seen, except now you have in the white national scores.
But this is based on the ACT.
This is still ACT
So this is
data.
only evaluating a third of our graduates.
Correct.
True, but I would still go back to, that's the third who believes they're going to college, and still we're not getting them ready in all 4 areas.
Good point.
We're trying.
This is still ACT data, and by disaggregation, the green bars represent ends of less than 10. And this is for English.
Yeah, so this is exactly the sort of thing where these numbers, the proportions of within an ethnicity who are qualified by the ACT, these are not different. Statistically, these are the same number. Now, does this mean that it's true for all ethnicities? No, but among the people who self-select to take the ACT, your race doesn't matter, and that's all I need as a conclusion from this slide.
Well, that's a good thing to know.
And this is the disaggregate for math. And the disaggregate for reading.
Sorry, so reading's distinct from English?
It is, and this lends itself to social studies,
Ah, okay.
social sciences. And finally, science. And, you know, Chris, you can say if this is significant or not, but it seems science is our lowest scoring content area, so it is an area of concern for me.
Actually, sorry. So here is an example of the sort of where the numbers, a fluctuation of a little bit doesn't take many kids changing status. So for the Hispanic and Latinos, we've got 19 kids. Each kid counts as 5%. The difference between a 61% pass rate in whites and a 42% pass rate in the Hispanics is 4 children. If 2 of those guys passed, it's not statistically different. But 4 of them, it's on the bubble. But this isn't many kids that we're talking about. It's a very small population that seem to be different.
And then this is a slide that just represents all 4 areas. So SAT, again, the district scores stayed constant, as did state and national scores. At the bottom, it shows that we had 1,221 students out of 1,700 take the SAT. Why did we have more exams taken than we had students take the SAT is because we have students who take it more than once to increase their score. And this is, again, breaking it down. We do see in this reading mean score that a 5-year average, we see 5 points of an increase compared to a decline of 4 points, or 5 points and 4 points for the state and nation. Math, we see an increase of 12 points, increase over 5 years, and the state had a 1-point decline and the nation stayed the same. In writing, we saw an increase of 9 points in the mean score, while the state and nation saw a -4 and -5 reduction. Again, this is a disaggregate of the SAT, and the blue bars are those groups that had less than 10 for a mean. I'm sorry, for an N. This is reading, math, writing. So that was the SAT.
Do you have any takeaway from the SAT stuff? I didn't when I looked at it, so.
Yeah, you know, I don't, hard data-wise, I know that our high schools do a really nice job of, you know, through our partnership with PTSA, they do a lot of SAT prep. You know, students are afforded that. It'll be interesting to see what our PSAT Universal does to these scores. Yeah. So, and again, I'm not quite sure, I'm just curious about what the correlation would be between GPA and SAT. You know, if there's, we do look at, colleges look at the index to get in, you know, with that combination, so do we see a correlation? I don't know if we really track that student to student and how we get that data, but it'd be interesting to look at. AP scores. We had 1,739 students enrolled in AP throughout the district. That included 10 through 12. And we estimate about 26% of our high school students took AP classes, AP courses. Okay, state assessment. At the time of graduation.
I'm sorry, Heather, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
On the AP, the question I have is we do multiple different types of college preparation courses, and this is only talking about something of IB. We do UW in the classroom. We do these different components, which are all different ways. AP is the College Board lecture-based multiple choice test, not necessarily a strong point for all children in our system. So it'd be nice to be able to have a more broad range of across the board, those honors levels work that we're providing for students and what they're doing on it. Yeah, you might have done that in the other ones. I might be forgetting within result 2.
I mean, that's a, thank you for saying that. We did try and start to capture the college and the high school programs, and we have them at our schools, but we're now going to be able to capture that data more easily because we have common course names and common course codes, and so we'll be able to mine for that. I know it was higher than this, so initially when I started looking at it in the fall, it was 3%, and I know we have students who are taking more classes than that.
Great. I'd just like to expand beyond AP.
And how many, where are we with Cambridge? What are we at, juniors now, not seniors yet?
We are in the third year, so juniors, and I talked with the administrators, and they had 110 applicants.
It'd be interesting, I think, to see, you know, how they do as being kind of a unique program over time. I mean, you've got another year before they graduate, but I think finding some way to capture some data around them would be interesting.
And I know that, you know, part of that conversation with Juanita was they wanted to have the kids stay in the Cambridge program for at least 2 years, hopefully to stay in through all 4, but at least for 2, so that they would be really prepared to go out and take AP or college and the high school programs.
Okay.
Okay, state assessment. This is for students who attended district schools for at least their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. The class of 2012, we had 97% of the students who passed the reading HISP, 98% in writing, 85% in math. And science, for this particular class, the last time they took the math HISP, or I'm sorry, the science HISP was when they were in 10th grade. They didn't have to take the EOC, so the EOC is not counted in here. Culminating project pass rate, 95%. So we had an end there of when you take the total graduates minus the transfers, it's 1,589. So 86 students did not complete or pass the culminating project. Okay, I'm going to move on to the clearinghouse if there are any questions.
Sure, there's another one.
Yeah, sure.
So far, and my question will be I don't think, because I've looked at the National Clearinghouse one that's still based with a college concept. Knowing that the end result one deals with success in college, success in the workplace, and success in personal life is sort of it, have we come around to do anything around those other ones yet effectively? Or
workplace, personal success? No, that I know of. I mean, I think we've been tracking college, but in terms of tracking kids after they graduate in the workplace.
If it's tracking as much as if our goal, if the mission is to make sure they're ready for the workplace, how are we looking at that to see that that is true? Is it all based off a basic literacy component? Okay. But just to be clear what we're saying in regards to that, I'm not sure. It's clear, I feel like we have data that tells us whether or not we're hitting ends result one in regards to prepared for college. I'm not sure we're doing it in prepared for workplace and prepared for the other. So
to a large extent, I mean, yes, prepared for the workplace, some of the trades, things like that. Are you ready for further training? But I don't think by any measure we have the delusion that a high school degree is prepared for the workplace. It's prepared for further training, whether that's college or the specialized training.
That's fine as long as we want to define it, but our vision says this is what we're doing and this is what we're monitoring off of. So I think we just need to be clear and define what we do as to what our goal is and what we're looking for by saying that.
And I think part of that is not just the workplace immediate post-high school, but the workplace in the future, because we're talking about life skills.
Right.
And it's, what I've been told is it's often very difficult to get kids to come back 4 or 8 years later and relate how their high school or their K-12 experience impacted them. We did try once to have a linkage session with that age group, and we weren't able to get
Did not want to come back.
kids to come back.
They were busy doing other things.
So in answer to your question, we
Yeah,
don't have a
free food. We
solution
were going to feed them.
to what's a laudable goal, to how do you track what's a laudable goal.
Or what we're already doing in that sense of how are we doing it for those who college isn't, do we make sure we have those alternative things in place? You have WANIC in place, you have other options of which people can
Well,
do.
apprenticeships and trades, I don't know that we really have a good handle on how well that is working out for those kids either.
Because those trades also require very high literacy levels at the same time, so I think it's important
And
to...
math skills
Yeah.
and science.
Yep. Yeah, I think the question of the 22% who didn't go on to some sort of 2-year, 4-year, what did they go on to do?
If there's some way we could figure that out, it'd be interesting.
Check Issaquah. I think they do a follow-up study with their graduates a year after. I'm not positive.
Siri, I believe we used to do that, and I think we got that out of a college, out of Eastern, I believe. Is that correct? Matt's shaking his head.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping me, Matt. And if my recollection serves me correct, they are no longer producing that report. Is that right?
Yeah, I remember.
There was some change. Anyway, we can check on that, but I know there have been some changes in their process. But we did used to get out of that report, the follow-along study, and it did include, as I recall, data about students entering the workforce and military and those kinds of things. So we will double check on that just to verify, but my recollection is that there may have been some changes in the availability of that data.
I remember even when I was still back in the high school that we would try and capture students as they were coming home for the holidays. And we'd send postcards to families and invite them in and, feed them. And but it was more anecdotal than. Yeah. Okay, so the National Student Clearinghouse. I'm going to not go through these really, really fast, but kind of fast in terms of giving, it's a lot of information. But these first 4 slides represent students in our district who enrolled in college the fall immediately after high school. So they didn't take a semester off, a quarter off. They graduated in June and went to college in September or October or August. So about 72%. This slide is just private institutions versus public. This slide is 4-year versus 2-year. This slide is in-state institutions, out-of-state institutions. And you can see the total in the class, 1,000. This was from 2011, and so we got this data in 2012. So we're lagging a year behind here. This information is percent of students enrolled in college at any time during the first year after high school. So they may have entered second semester, second quarter, third quarter, and now we have a total of 77, so up by 5%. Breaking it down by public and private, again, totals are 77. This is 4-year, 2-year institutions. This is in-state and out-of-state. And the breakdown. This next group of slides is students who enrolled anytime during the first 2 years after. So you may have had, a student who took I don't know, my family, they call it the gap year, or not sure what that means, or took a year off to work, 81%. So within 2 years, 81% of our kids are attending, so an increase of 9%. Again, public institutions versus private. 4-year versus 2. In-state and out-of-state. And the totals. Now, for some reason, this data got kind of mixed up when it was sent to us, but if you look over to the left, it says total in public, and then they moved total in private down a couple of rows. So in-state, out-of-state is correct, but they did mix up the 4-year, 2-year in public and private. This is basically students who came back for their second year, that persistence. How many of our students, stayed with it? And we had 91% enroll for a second year. Again, this is just breaking it down by public and private, 4-year, 2-year, in-state and out-of-state, and then a breakdown by enrolled anywhere. First year, second year. We have basically, we have seen a small decrease. We had 92 students who did not persist into the second year.
Yeah, but that's a pretty good retention rate in general.
It's a pretty good retention rate, I think so too. I don't know why this makes me giggle, I guess because I've never had to pay for 6 years of college, but this is a percentage of high school class who completed a degree within 6 years.
That means they could have done it in 4 and done it in 5, so some at least by 6. That's still only half.
Yeah. Again, by public versus private. 4-year versus 2. And on the 2-year, I'm not sure if this includes students who may have transferred to a 4-year. To say that you're going to finish a 2-year AA degree in 6 years, so I don't know if we capture some of those kids if they've transferred from a 2-year to a 4-year.
I would think so.
And then number of high school graduates who have a college degree.
That's about right. 55%, yeah, that's about right.
This next slide is time to college graduation with 6-year associate, bachelor, and higher. So for the, there's one colored band that says graduated in 2 years or less. How is that possible? It would be possible for students who had, gone the AA route and had gotten a lot of credits racked up in high school through Running Start before heading off to college. Now we're going to, I'm going to back up. Most of our students, mom and dad are happy, graduated in 4 years, the majority. So this is the class of 2004. Now we're going to look at some class of data. And if you look at, it would have been the third box, or the fourth box over, would have been their 4th year in college. So we had 33.8. Oops. Oh. Let's do this one again. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, class of 2005. Class of 2006. Class of 07. So they would be
Pretty consistent numbers.
This is a class of 08. So we have 40% graduating on time.
And we still got kids in school.
And I think these numbers are good because they're staying in school. So 2 years ago, 2010. And then 77% enrolled. I have just a couple more slides to share, and it is around the most common institutions for enrollment following high school graduation. But, you know, please remember this is from, I think it's 8 years worth, so starting in 2004. Let me get my notes here. So 04 to 2012, so 8 years, versus what I showed you earlier was just the class of 2010. And I think, Doug, you said that Bellevue College really is a 2-year, although I think they're looking at it as a 4-year in this. But we really only have, as I look at this, 3 community colleges represented.
Yeah.
Cascadia, Edmonds, and Shoreline, and Bellevue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
The Lake Washington Institute of Technology is not a community college, but it's also
Big part of that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Janine.
But they are both offering 4-year degrees now.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, and again, the conversation we were having with Cascadia is that their number of programs are limited, so they're really still considered predominantly to be 2-year institutions. And that other part of the conversation is that each of them are looking at the niches that they fit to be more unique. And Cascadia looks at themselves as being a transfer college. They have a 70% rate of transferring at the end of 2 years into a 4-year institution, which we encourage them to promote, because if that's what people are looking for, is to be able to have 2 years of relatively inexpensive education. And they actually commented that their move from them to the UW downtown is greater than some others that do that. So part of why they had us there was, you know, how do they get the word out about who they are and what they do and what they offer, and get more of our students to participate there, and what do they need to do for marketing. But it was a learning experience for all of us, because I didn't know all that about them and what they did and how they did it. And, you know, one of their drawbacks is they don't have sports, so, which is a number of high school students want to continue that as well as get some of their degrees. So, but it was a learning experience about all the programs in the area, so I thought it was really, really helpful.
Okay, well, that is my last slide. I appreciate all of your thoughtful comments and questions, and, you know, we'll be following up. I think for me, this has been quite a learning experience. As I started in September talking about DIBELS, and now I'm talking about, where our students are, some of them 7 years out of high school. It just makes me ponder and want to dig in even more, because I think we owe it to our kids, even if it's 4 or 5, to do whatever we can to keep them and help them be successful.
Thank you, Heather, for all your work. You've done really a tremendous job in your reporting, and not only Heather, but Tracy and Janine and all of those have put their heads together to pull all these figures together for us, and listening to the board and, adjusting for us and tweaking for the next go-round. So much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome. Did Tracy have anything for the SOUPS report tonight?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
Just
what we've done so far.
Yes.
Okay. Doug, do you have a ledge report for us tonight?
Just briefly, we're now into the 3rd week of the session, and today, this afternoon, the Senate Early Learning and K-12 Committee had hearings on 4 bills related to student suspension and expulsion, so we want to kind of keep track of those. And just parenthetically, our association has a conference call every Monday morning to kind of track these, so we're actively trying to keep, and our association is trying to do a better job in scheduling school directors and other staff to attend hearings, so they're going to try to give us more early warning on that. Several accountability bills will be heard Wednesday, and this is where we're beginning to see just what, particularly on the Senate side, what the configuration of the leadership looks like. And in fact, on the way here, I heard an NPR or a KPLU story about Rodney Tom talking about how we need more, actually start to grade our schools. And, one could speculate that there may be more of a focus on that kind of thing as opposed to coming up with more money to meet the Supreme Court decision. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But anyway, look for after Wednesday, some fallout from that hearing as far as, what the reaction will be from various circles about grading schools. And anyway, and then tomorrow, the House Education Committee will hear a bill to remove the requirement to pass statewide assessments to graduate. And also, they'll be hearing a bill to require school districts to use nationally certified education interpreters. And on Thursday, the House Education Committee will hear bills on professional development and reducing the compulsory age for school attendance from 8 to 6. And I know this is going to thrill Chris. But anyway, we'll try to keep you posted on those bills.
Okay,
and that's it.
Okay. And I know that there are bills that you all hear about through your associate, groups that meet never with superintendents so if there are any that we as a board need to either be aware of, or you think a letter or a call from board members might help, let us know too. That would be helpful to do. We get the WASDA briefings, and I every now and then remember to go look at WASA's, which actually I hate to say this, has a better briefing of bills that are out there for education than our own association. But anyway, if you don't have time, but anyway, if there's anything, please let us know. Something we can do.
We will make sure we include that in our.
Yeah, I don't know if that maybe, if there's anything in briefs every now and then that pop up that ought to.
We need to stay coordinated, because that request from WASDA, I think that came through today, it was a little bit surprising to me, which I guess is this new thing Doug mentioned. But I don't want to be, going to testify down in Olympia or without knowing how the administration also feels about these bills. So we need to stay coordinated. I think we worked out something last year, but I can't remember what.
And either. I'm just thinking, with these discipline ones,
The problem is
what ones do you think are of value versus ones that cost? They may be valuable, but, how costly are they as well, time-wise? And because a lot of it had to do with, some of it had to do with reporting. I just kind of glanced at them when I saw that come through from WASDA. But anyway, so if we can.
But I think Nancy raises a good point that, we're just not really set up to be that agile. In other words, if there's going to be somebody speaking on behalf of the board on some of these issues, there really has to be a way of knowing that they're speaking for the board. Otherwise, people can speak as individuals or maybe speak on behalf of WASDA, but it's a little bit trickier when you're speaking for the board on some of these issues.
Well, some of it is, too, just being aware of them, and then individually as board members, we can step out of our role and say, I saw this, and as a individual, and I'm not speaking for the board, I'm telling you what I think, with my experience or whatever.
I would also encourage that as a board, we come up with what our legislative agenda is in regards to those things. And looking at those things that are coming down the pike, what do we all agree on? And therefore, we can speak as one voice, and we can be in line. We can have that discussion with the administration as well to make sure we all speak.
But we can only do that if we discuss it at a meeting.
Right.
So we can only do that if we're working ahead of time. And part of the problem is that, any of us speaking are not speaking for the board unless we have a board meeting and discuss it.
Part of the problem is how
to get it on the agenda ahead of time.
Part of the problem is how they operate, and when things pop, when are we scheduled? So trying to work around that. But yes, there are times that we can do that, and time-wise we do.
City councils work that way quite consistently, and having what their legislation, and so it actually I talked with Dr. Pierce about, is there something that the board can look at possibly? What are key things on the horizon? We know charter schools is a piece that's coming down. As a board, is there a stance that we agree on that we want to take and be able to say? So when we meet with our legislators, we're able to say, here's where Lake Washington School District stands and is advocating for. And starting from those policies such as WASDA's, you can look at those different examples and be able to utilize those in which to position.
Well, that's the other thing is being strategic, and that, there's times when we're going to diverge from WASDA, but that's something we have to be careful about is when do we want to do that, really in a public way, and how often do we want to just keep our mouths shut?
Well, the other thing, too, unfortunately, is that a lot of these that pop, that have impact, may never get a hearing. So it's, how do you put your weight and time and effort and energy and how much time, to pursue them, unfortunately, in the way our legislature operates. It's that way. So anyway, may have.
It's clear as mud.
We'll see if we have, clear as mud. We'll see if they have any.
At the next work session,
time
if
on
there's
Saturday.
somebody's got something, they can maybe bring it up and we can discuss it. Obviously, with 100 or more education bills each session, you can't do all of them, but we can at least
the ones that
maybe
pop to the
discuss
top.
the big ones.
Yep. I think it's an important thing to at least
And the
look at.
budget is more important than anything else.
That's
and
right.
we will be following that one very closely.
Right, and we'll hear about that on a pretty regular basis and discuss that.
And those are the sorts of things, maybe being a newer board member, that it's beneficial when I know when I am speaking as me and when I am speaking as the voice of the board, and without having those discussions with everybody here, it's hard to know when that is true.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why I think there are valuable points that are being discussed in our legislature that we should, as a board, have a clear position as to what we support and what we don't.
And of course, we are early in the process. There's a lot of stuff that's never going to see the light of day, and so it's important that we don't exercise too much, get too excited about things that aren't going to.
Well, and I think the only advantage of looking at what's out there now is if there's say there's 50 bills, I'm going to be generous with a small number, and someone, whoever that might be it WASDA, that you report from WASDA that says these 10 bills or you eyeball them and say, these 10 bills really have some impact that I'd be curious about, or district could tell us about finance or whatever, so that we could talk about 5 or 10 bills and not be talking about 50 or 100.
Right.
The ones that really surface, and usually it's budget.
And Tracy can also let us know, because she's part of several groups, including the Puget Sound Schools Coalition and that other one that they came up with.
The Alliance,
The Alliance, to let us know, because I think that both of those, you're supposed to let us know what particular bills are being addressed, more or less.
Yeah, and I think if we
In our board
have them
reports or
come
something.
to us, at least we could look at them, and then I think it's easier then to come together and say, 4 of us don't really see that as a big excitement, but
We worked
Or-
on this,
yeah.
we did work this out when we decided that the district was going to do the Alliance. You got to help me out here, you know
I
how I
don't,
feel
yeah,
about
I
this
know, but my
stuff.
brain's not remembering it, so it went to the deep, dark file cabinet that hasn't surfaced
Well,
again.
somebody maybe can resurface it and bring it on Saturday.
Okay.
Is it next Saturday? Whenever that Saturday is.
This Saturday. Yeah, that'd be good.
We can do that.
Is it only this Saturday?
It's this Saturday. Coming, yes.
It's going to be February.
Yeah. Any board follow-up? I've already done my Cascadia piece.
Yeah, I was going to say, but that, that we did meet at Cascadia with other school boards that are in the Cascadia attendance area, I guess you'd call it, and with the trustees from Cascadia. But that's where they shared, and maybe, I don't know if it's a little institutional jealousy or not, but they shared the fact that at least structurally, there's no real difference between Cascadia and Bellevue as far as governance, the way governance is set up in the state under the RCWs.
Well, the interesting thing is that Cascadia said they have not really done much of a marketing or recruiting or whatever, and all of a sudden they're finding themselves in a position that, well, maybe we ought to be thinking about that. So this is what this whole piece was. And after they met with us, the next day they met with principals and the superintendent, and I think they're just principals. And one of the things else that they've done is they brought a number of EL students from Redmond High School over to the campus to show them what it is, to kind of get them excited about going to college. So those are some of the things they're working on with them, and so they're trying to do, just do more of an active role. So it was an interesting, very good use of their time. Any other future agenda items other than things about legislation? Okay. Any debriefing?
I just have a quick comment. Having looked at the course catalog at our high school, it was exciting to see that ASL and Mandarin are being offered at different high schools. So I know Redmond High had ASL, saw Eastlake with Mandarin and ASL, adding theirs to 5, so that was great. And there's also a signature program being offered at Redmond High in global health. So just nice to see all that work coming to fruition in these different places. So good job.
Great. Good to hear that. Any other board member comments? If not, our work session for this evening has been canceled with Dr. Pierce not here, and so we're going to roll some of the topic into Saturday. We are meeting this Saturday at 8:30 to talk about the capital bond and levy planning, which, believe it or not, is 1 year and just a week or so away. Never hear me ever say anything about levying bonds, I know. It's become my new, again, it's right there at the top of the head. Monday, February 11th, is our next board meeting, which will be a work session at 5 p.m. about intervention and accelerated programs with our board meeting at 7. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Just Jackie. Just Jackie? Yeah.